Morning, everybody. What are we on now? Married Man Sex Life Primer. It's actually a bigger book than I remember it being. 26 chapters of goodness, and we're up to about like 6 or 7. Probably the most important part of the book. I think you guys are going to really enjoy yourself. Married Man Sex Life Primer. Part 2. The Male Action Plan. Part 4 for us, but what the hey. We're going through a lot of stuff. Morning, everybody. So we started off with Chapter 6, Section 1, the introduction to the map. He gives you a quick warning here. So from here until the end of the book, it's all very practical advice. If you have no interest in actually doing anything to improve your sex life, you may as well stop reading now. And so I say this with the majority of people in the sphere learning about the sexual marketplace. Thanks for showing up. Don't forget to hit like. I'm just kidding. Yeah, we're not doing the vague platitudes. We're not doing the pablum. We're not going to sell you on Lamborghinis and stuff. It's a nice, simple life. You want to have better relationships. And we're here to do just that. So, the Male Action Plan, or MAP for short, is a proven approach to getting a better sex life. The MAP gets you to model behaviors that trigger a girl's body to release dopamine and oxytocin. Once these two hormones are strongly triggered in relation to you, her own body creates a positive emotional and sexual response to you that she has little control over. More importantly, the MAP is not about changing her, it's about changing you. Again, I have to repeat this because everybody gets this wrong. The Male Action Plan, or the MAP, is not about changing her. It's about changing you. That is extremely important. Remember, if it was about changing her, he says he'd call it the Female Action Plan or the FAP. I don't know if he understands the joke with that one, but if you guys don't know, FAP is like a euphemism for rubbing out some knuckle children, so whatever. If you've ever tried begging or pleading or rationalizing for getting more and better sex from your partner, you probably know how remarkably ineffective this is. He has a critical point at the end here too I wanted to make mention. So the MAP may not work in your current relationship with your wife. You may very well spruce up perfectly and become more appealing to women in general, but your own wife may turn up her nose at you. You really cannot control another person's reaction. You can influence her reactions and make her more likely to choose you, but you cannot force them. So should you push harder and start heading to the door, there will be another woman willing to take your wife's place and give you the love and sex you desire. This may seem like an exceptionally cold approach to relationships, but it is simply realistic. If a wife doesn't want to have sex with a sexy husband who's a good man, then there just is no pleasing her. Her husband's torment will last as long as the marriage does. From a frame perspective, this tells you exactly what you need to know, not just about this book, not about running your map, but about this space in general. It's never been about getting that girl. It's always about getting more girls. And with a marriage, nothing changes. With a relationship, nothing changes. With a lifelong college sweetheart that you've been dating since you were both 16, nothing changes. Why you're at college at 16, I don't know. But that's the point. It's not about her. It's about you. Now, you want to make yourself more attractive, and obviously because the situation that's put you in this place is being in a loveless relationship with no sex, maybe bad at behaviors, who knows. That's the catalyst to your change. The idea, though, is that she gets first crack at your libido, not sole custody. So if this doesn't work, you cannot have that covert contract as in doing it from her or trying to manipulate her. Like, it has the effect of manipulating her in the same sense that being attractive will manipulate women into finding you more attractive, but that's about as far as you can take it. As much as I wish it would be, and I know a lot of guys would love it if it was just tips and tricks and little things you can do that trigger some involuntary response in her. Everybody wanted that, but that's not what you can deliver. Again, all you can deliver is frame, and it's kind of what I refer to as the greatest bait and switch for the benefit of men in world history. You bring a guy in here and you sell him on sleeping with his wife, and he leaves with self-actualization. And I guess I'm not sure why he does this. By the time the guys read the book and made it to chapter 6, a lot of guys maybe still need convincing, or maybe it's just his way of justification, but the sexless marriage cheats you. So he's of the firm belief that in a sexless marriage, the spouse who denies sex is cheating the other out of their marriage agreement. And I use the word cheating quite purposefully and see it as minimally different than an affair. Like I said, I get what he's saying here. If you are in a relationship, you've made a tacit agreement that a man will pursue less of his sexual options in exchange for you to be sexually available more often, like as often as he needs it. Basically, I'm only going to sleep with one girl the rest of my life, but I'm going to be doing it often. So when somebody doesn't lead to their side of the arrangement, then why would you lead to? It's no different than if you cheated on your partner, suggesting, yeah, fidelity's not a thing. But, I mean, at this point, do you guys really need that kind of sales pitch? You should be kind of selling into it. So another question is, why do men get so agitated about not having sex? Now, the clinical, and here's something important, something to consider. A lot of guys ask about dead marriages, dead bedrooms, sexless relationships. What does that even mean? It's not a container word. It's very specifically put in here. The clinical definition of a sexless marriage is sex 10 or fewer times in a year or less than once a month. Personally, I think the clinical definition is so far below a normal level of sexual functioning that it really clouds the issue. Getting sex once or twice a month from your wife is slow torture to a healthy sexual man. Having sex less than twice a week is a red flag in basically physical healthy young couples. So yeah, in general, a lot of guys are wondering, like, am I having enough sex? Am I happy with it? Am I not happy with it? If you're not having sex twice a week, that indicates a problem. Period. The problem could be you're stressed, work's kind of busy, temporarily you guys aren't having much time. Maybe it could be she just had a baby, the doctor says 6 weeks, you got to lay off until she heals up again. I guess you can't throw a watermelon through that thing and expect sex to happen the next day. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. It could be she just doesn't find you attractive. Could be you don't find her attractive. Could she be gaining a lot of weight? There's always a reason. Now, the reason may or may not be a good reason. It may not be justifiable, but just realize that it is a reason. He adds in red text here, if your wife offers frequent blowjobs or handjobs, enjoy them, but be careful that she's not just distracting you. An interested wife will desire frequent, normal sex and be glad to get you to blow in her. I don't know, I didn't want to get too technical with this one. I'm trying to skirt the language filter while we still deal with the content. But yeah, she wants the money shot. But if you suspect she's interested in another man and she's nearing ovulation, pay attention to excessive offers of blowjobs or handjobs. A woman unconsciously blocking her husband's sperm for several days before ovulation is a red flag that could indicate potential cheating. Again, you've heard probably, at least from me, if not from other guys, where they say frequent like add-ons to sex is considered a healthy relationship thing. One of the biggest indicators that a guy is getting more attractive in his wife's eyes, or in eyes in general, is you'll notice a girl goes down more often. Awesome. Just be aware, though, if it's one of those things, it could be a subconscious thing on her level to not want you anywhere near her by the time she's ovulating, but she still likes you around. It's literally friend zoning with oral. Again, you really have to keep your wits about you on this one. I'm not going to be able to give Guy, and neither can Athol Kay, give you like a surefire list. Oh, just make sure you check through these 3 check boxes. 10 different events to know you're an alpha male. It's not how the world works. Everything is contextual. So sexless marriages play out in one of 4 ways. First one, endless misery. And this is the first outcome, that is essentially nothing changes in the marriage. It stays locked in the cycle of one partner denying the other, and other miserable and desperate to get the other sex. Number 2, extramarital sex. Second outcome is that the partner denied just gives up and goes to seek sex elsewhere. The third option, divorce. The third possibility is the spouse who's denied sex may just get tired of being taken advantage of and leave. Then fourth, a sexual marriage. The fourth option is that the low-sex partner becomes more interested and sexual activity resumes. That's the ideal. That's what we're shooting for here. But at the same time, you have to be aware. Outcome independence is very important here. So know that one of these 4 situations are going to happen. You're either going to sulk and live in your own misery, you're going to go outside to find what you need to get done, you're going to leave, or things are going to work better. And you, other than option 1, which is pretty bad and it's kind of no better off than when you started, you have to be willing to explore each of these options. If they're not there, then you're going to be hamstringing you. I remember a story, Ultimate Cad. He was a guy from the Sphere a long time ago. His wife ended up stepping out, treated him like crap. He finally went jaded. He ran through his map, and for him, option 2. He played it. He demoted his wife to plate, kept her around because he didn't want to have her raising the kids without him around. Kids were like 5-6 years away from being out of the house. And he's like, that's fine. I'm just going to stop looking to her for sexual validation and just have sex with the rest of the neighborhood. Now, it's weird in that they had this like perfect amount of dysfunction where the wife was kind of subliminally turned on by that, and their relationship's been great ever since. But he opened it up unilaterally. A lot of guys end up divorcing. They try this stuff, they run through it, they find that their wife just really wasn't worth it. The juice literally wasn't worth the squeeze, but they know that. It wasn't just a guess. Or they find that the caliber of women they could get now is so much better than the wife, and they still have that little bit of resentment. It's like, you put me through hell for 2 years, I'm out of here. And they just leave. And then, but most of them tend to work. Most women don't jump off a moving train, so fixing your stuff tends to fix them. He makes a critical point at the bottom here. So before starting your map, I'm assuming you're probably in the default outcome of sexual denial and unhappiness. It may be a bad relationship, but it's a stable one. You and your wife might both be unhappy with each other, but you both know the roles you've mapped out and play them well. By you removing this default option from your choices the wife can choose from, this will destabilize your marriage, so things will get worse before they get better. He says things may get worse. I'm saying they will. You've heard me say it before. Sometimes you've been bad, garbage to your husband for so long, garbage to your boyfriend, garbage to your man for so long, that the girl isn't used to good behavior. And so once you start acting better, they don't see it yet because they see what they want to see. They see all the baggage that they built up with you over the years. Now, when you start changing things and destabilizing the stable thing, they tend to double down on those stabilizing behaviors, stronger denials, harsher criticism, because we like patterns. We like things the way they are. We don't like when they change. And when they start to change, we just assume that means we got to double down on what we've already been doing. Think of it like a kid crying in a candy store. Kid wants candy, starts crying. Mom gets placative. It's like, fine, here, have some candy, shut up. Next time she goes to the candy store. Kid starts crying, says they want candy. Mom says no. The kid cries some more. Mom says, fine, here's some candy. Finally, dad goes to the candy store. Kid wants candy, kid starts crying. Dad's like, no, you're not getting any candy. So the kid starts crying louder. Dad says, forget it, you're not getting any candy. Kid starts having a damn temper tantrum on the floor because they're used to, as long as I cry hard enough for long enough, I'll get what I want. And this is where you are. But instead of candy, it's sex within a marriage, or sex within a relationship, or better behavior within a relationship in general. Things will get better after they get worse. Things will get worse before they get better, however you want to word it. So stop tolerating the intolerable. He gets many emails that all essentially ask the same question with minor variations. I've gotten those same emails. Corey's gotten them. Rule Zero Dad. Rolo gets them. Just about all guys who are having issues with their relationships will all get the exact same set of stories, and which is why it's very funny. You hear a lot of you guys saying, how do you know? How did you know this was going to work this way? How did you know this? It's because after the 500th story of a guy turning around his sexless marriage, you start to notice they're all basically the same. But he'll say here, and it's a bit different than mine. He says, I've been married for X amount of years, and for the last awfully long time, I've had a problem with my wife and the huge intolerable relationship breaking problem, and they refuse to do anything about it. I have tried all manner of things to try to get them to change the huge intolerable relationship breaking problem, but they still refuse to do anything about it. How do I fix this? Now, Mine is slightly different. Guys don't actually know what the problem is, and they'll always start with a post hoc justification for their wife. I've been married for X amount of years, and my wife did something I don't like. She is a great woman, high tier woman, great with the kids. Basically, you know how a lot of girls talk about how good their job is and expect guys to find it attractive, and they never do? Well, a lot of guys will explain this, that their wife is top tier, and then say what she does for everybody else. Oh, she has a great job. She's good with the kids. She's not messy, but we haven't had sex in 3 years. And they always like hide that thing. Or they say how she's hormonal and she can't be figured out and she's all over the map. Oh, by the way, she's pregnant. But they don't tell you that for like the first 1,000 words of their essay. And then you realize the problem is the wife's pregnant. They don't know how to deal with it. Or they haven't had sex. And then all these other issues are bubbling up to the surface. And Wine More Please does this wonderfully. Stop tolerating her bullshit. Just stop. If you're not getting what you want, the tolerating of any of the nonsense is absolutely ridiculous. This is why we always talk about boundary enforcement. And one of the big ones there is attention. Pull your attention if your boundaries are being crossed. If she's not providing any value to you and she's nagging, pull your attention. Be somewhere else. You don't want to reward these good behaviors, because in the same way you don't want to give a kid candy when they're having a temper tantrum, if the wife is actively treating you like garbage, you sticking around signals that it's okay to treat you like garbage. So stop tolerating it. He adds in the end here, medical issues aside, when you're cut off from sex by your spouse, the marriage is in critical condition because one spouse has started actively working against the marriage. This is a serious and legitimate issue. You have the right to feel angry and hurt about it, and it's okay to take action and address this issue. If that sounds familiar, it should, because that's Manuel Smith, When I Say No, I Feel Guilty, and the Bill of Assertive Rights. You're allowed to care about what you want to care about. The reason he puts that in there is because most people, when any guy will talk about a grievance, the first thing they do is attempt to shame him for being a bitch about it. It's like, no. I'm in a marriage. I could be sleeping with other girls right now, but I picked you. The fact that you're not doing it bugs me. And they'll bring up all kinds of cases. Well, you think you're entitled, you think this, you think that. Yeah, I don't care about any of that. I'm not getting what I want right now, and I don't like it. It's as far as you need to take it. Obviously, stop tarking and start taking action. The goal here is to stop chasing and pursuing your wife and generally make it clear by your actions that you're no longer going to be held as her emotional hostage. Stop begging for sex. The other reason you need to stop begging for sex is that it actively turns off a woman's sexual interest in you. Begging and pleading is a submissive display and frames her as the dominant one. As most women respond sexually to male dominance, advertising the exact opposite is a turnoff. You cannot negotiate desire, and that's the perfect reason why. Again, realize she may have no interest in solving the problem. The wife who denies you may have zero interest in solving this problem. If you're the husband, you would obviously feel terribly cheated in this arrangement. So like this, it's very easy to frame everything as being her fault and believe that she is the one who must change for the marriage to be happy or even continue. And while that sounds quite logical, the trouble is, and this is important, the trouble is that this gives all the power to change and improve the situation to her. And she may have no interest in changing the relationship while you cater to her endlessly. I keep it simple. From a frame perspective. Two people worry about blame and whose fault it is. That's children and that's chicks. I'm not a chick, and I'm no longer a child. I've got the card for it. I can drive. I got my driver's license. I'm not a kid anymore. Fault and blame is irrelevant. So for most guys, when they're in a dying or dead bedroom, they really love to blame the girl because it puts the onus on her to fix everything. It gives her all the power. And for a lot of guys, it's this weird sort of self-sabotage because they created a situation where they become more submissive, less dominant, catering to a bunch of beta traits, none of the alpha traits, or just losing them over time. And then their answer to this problem is to double down on that, in this case, by blaming everything on her and having her put the onus to fix them. Girls are getting everything they want out of a marriage. They're getting the kids, they're getting the lifestyle, they're getting the flex on their friends that I got a husband. hate to say it, but, well, I don't hate to say it, but it's a good saying. If you want to fix these things, just go fix them. It may not be with her. She may not want to fix it herself, but that's fine because you're not doing this to win the validations of a girl who's put you in a dead bedroom. You are doing this because you don't want to be in a dead bedroom, and you're going to put yourself in a position where at least one hot girl is going to want to sleep with you. Maybe not all of them, maybe not the one you started with, but at least one more. So he ends off, I think it's ending off chapter 6 on "You be the change." Luckily, most wives crave their husbands becoming more attractive and appealing, but cannot get themselves unstuck to communicate that effectively. One of the most common ways men find his stuff is through their wife suggesting they read it, or maybe leaving it open on the computer for him to find it. Women always want a better partner, and you just know they love to think they're changing us for the better. I don't see a lot of examples for that, so that might be something older, but women like a man who just gets it, because they never know if it's sincere. If they have to tell a man, I need you to be more dominant, I need you to do this, if they start using that direct and open communication, well, then there's always that lingering doubt. Is he dominating me because I told him to? Or is he dominating me because he's a dominant top-tier man? Again, it all goes back to Evo Psych. There's a concept called the innate skepticism bias, and it was coined by, as far as I know, it's Dr. David Buss and Cindy Minson. And girls have an innate bias against low investment signals of attraction. What this means in this case is that a man who just gets it is sending an expensive signal. He's taken the time to assess what a girl needs. He has enough experience with girls, like it's nothing you can fake. By her telling him what you have to do, she could actually be giving a false attraction signal to herself, and it's kind of sabotaging. So they're just hardwired not to want to do that, and it just doesn't work quite as well as you'd think. Now, you may think that means girls are self-unaware, they have no agency, blah, blah, blah. I don't know about all that stuff. However you want to frame it is fine. Just realize girls can't tell you what they want because they kind of don't know. They just react to it when it's there. And if they even in their mind think they know what they want and they tell you to do it, they can always judge it as insincere. Now, remember too on this, there's no quick fix. If you're a decent beta, the solution is to add alpha traits, not reduce beta traits and add alpha. It's not a zero-sum game where you can either be alpha or beta. You can and must be both. The alpha traits turn her on, but lacking the beta traits eventually turns her off. It's actually quite a long journey to really change yourself in this way. There's a 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of thing that happens. Much of the alphaness stems from physicality and can take 1 to 2 years of exercise to really pay off if you've let yourself go, so it is a process. I want to add to this one too, where he says it's not about removing beta traits, but adding alpha traits. Oh, 1 sec. There we go. A lot of guys, what they do is they take the boundary enforcement line and they kind of go hog with it. They assume they remove all comfort, thinking my goal now is to be alpha. I'm going to be the alphiest alpha that ever alpha, to do everything alpha. Here's the problem with that. You have your beta traits, which may not be good for you, but they are what's creating a relationship. By you completely removing them, you've essentially removed any value you give at all to a relationship. So it tends to self-sabotage and completely nuke it out of nowhere. A lot of guys might think, well, hey, if she's not living up to her end of the bargain, screw it. She can go hit the bricks, right? That's fine. Here comes the problem. I call it the I am Steve Mcqueen problem. There was an old married red pill user goes by the name I am Steve Mcqueen. And he did this with his wife. His wife was horrible, treated him like garbage. Everybody could agree he was basically the exact situation here. He decided, pull all of his beta ones, go hard alpha. Divorced her, went with that option. That's great. Guys are like, that's great, and you totally deserve it. Having said that, you've probably done a lot of things that put you in this situation. So what you might want to consider, sticking around for a little bit, give your map a go, sort out all the things that are sabotaging, and then if you still want to do it 6 months from now, 12 months from now, you at least know that you're not going to screw it up again with the next girl. And he's like, nope, I got it. You're like, all right, you're a man, it's your choice. gets into another relationship 6 weeks later, to which everybody's like, dude, what are you doing? You just got out of a crappy one. You haven't even worked on yourself yet. You just assumed she was the entire problem, and you replaced her with somebody else, somebody younger and hotter. And he goes, yep, I did it, guys. I'm the alpha male. We're like, all right. 2 months later, comes in. Guys, this new girl reminds me a lot of my ex-wife. We're like, what? He goes, yeah, she's doing all the same things my ex-wife did. She's doing this, she's doing that. And we're like, okay. So beforehand, she was everything your wife wasn't. After 6 months of living with you, she took your lead, and now she's exactly what your ex-wife is, right? And he goes, yeah, it's ridiculous. Are they all this bad? We're like, no. Literally the thing we told you about 6 months ago. All that stuff we needed you to fix because the next girl's going to respond to it in the same way. You just did it. So yeah, there is no quick fix. Just be aware, dropping all your beta, adding all your alpha, it's not going to fix your relationship. It's just not. So what he suggests in the next section here, 611, correct your weak areas first. Now, as a rough guide, give yourself a year per point of sex rank. Are you going from a 6 to a 7 in about a year, then a 7 to an 8 in the second year? It's a gradual but serious effort. There is no one killer move that makes your vagina explode with fluids as you approach. It's about becoming a better man. Good sex is just the consequence of being sexy. I don't know if I agree with that either. Like, most of the time when you put arbitrary times on these things, they are subjective. He uses the sex rank, the 1 to 10 scale. If you want to go from a 6 to a 7, take a year. I like how the blue pill professor put it better, where for every year you've been in a crappy relationship, it takes about a month to get it back together. The point is, you just have to be willing to do your own personal marshmallow test. If you guys remember, that's the one where the kid can have 1 marshmallow a day, but if he sits there and waits for 15 minutes without eating it, they'll give him 2 marshmallows. It's about delayed gratification. Just be aware. And I always say put 2 years on this. I don't worry about the sex rank stuff because you're not going to be able to assess yours on your own anyway. And Thirst has basically removed the girl sex rank to the point that 5s can act like 10s and nobody cares. I don't like either of those systems. The one I like is it just takes 2 years. Because most guys who have hidden covert contracts about doing this to manipulate their wife into loving them, they tend to hold on to the illusion for about 2 years until the thing crumbles down. When you're first dating somebody and you want to find out if they're a good woman or they're just putting on appearances so they can hook you and then they can do whatever, usually happens a year to 2 years. So every psychological mask that we tend to wear and every covert contract we have, I have never seen one last longer than 2 years. And I've never seen one that can't last at least a year. So if you set your map as a 2-year timeline, you're guaranteed to avoid all of the nonsense on either side of the spectrum. So that's why I go with that. 1 to 2 years. Another part here that is kind of disagreeable, it's something I wouldn't mind having a talk with Rollo on later, is whoever has the higher sex rank is in charge of the relationship, which I don't necessarily agree with, but I get what he's saying. If one of you was hotter, then they have the greater options, and that creates more power within the relationship. I think I like how Rollo puts it better, where the one who's least invested is more likely has the more power, but that correlates with higher attractiveness. But I don't think it's perfect, because there can be guys who are unattractive, but they still won't put up with their supermodel's crap, and they'll still ditch her. As much as you say this girl could be a 10, but there's always somebody somewhere who's tired of her nonsense. And that's why I don't agree with this part here where whoever has the higher sex rank is in charge. Whoever's thirstier is not in charge. And then I like how he ends this with, there is limits. So adding more than a couple points to your innate sex rank is extremely hard. If you're a natural 6, getting to a 7 is some effort, getting to an 8 is hard, and getting to a 9 is just out of reach without somebody else footing the bill or being on reality TV show just to make you hot. Going from a 6 to a 10 isn't possible. And I'm just telling you how it is. The map is all about what's possible. That's something too, and I hate this argument. You see it all the time amongst the bitter, embittered middle-aged soccer moms. We talk about working on a map, fixing up a guy's thing, dread game. Girls don't like that. They're like, dude. You're like, yeah, you lift up, you do weights, and a lot of guys kind of dial it up to 12. And here's what you get. You get a scenario where guys with that literalist, tism-like explanation of the sexual marketplace think just lift, bro. You'll be hot. It's the Looks Max crowd. It's that Glow guy. It's all of these guys that think working out equals sexual market success, and it's not. In the same way that tires don't make a good car. A good car makes a good car, has good tires, but tires don't make a good car. So they'll put up pictures of super hot guys that are heroin chic, nice bone structure, nice clothing, and then they'll put up a guy who's in his bathroom taking a selfies, who's kind of swole and lean. And people notice, yeah, maybe there was this one floating around of this guy who had like no jaw, but he was jacked. And they're like, see, is this guy hotter than this guy? And they're talking about absolute ranks, which completely misses the point. The point is, take a guy, compare it to himself a year later, 10 pounds of muscle, 20 pounds less fat, better style. Is he objectively better than he was? Yes. You can't compare guys to other guys. Some guys are just natural 10s. They don't have to put much effort into it, and they're going to be hot the whole lives, and that's fine. Just, you don't worry about them, though, because they're not the ones in the dead bedroom. You are. They're not the ones that are going to get a side piece. You are. And while you may not be able to only bang objective 9s and 10s, I guarantee you, you get a guy who's got 10 6s under his belt, he'll be just as happy as the guy only banging 9s and 10s. He may get some internet hate, but usually it's from guys who aren't even doing 4s, so who cares? Attractive to all women means the risk of doing a male action plan is that you will pull the interest of a woman more attractive than your wife or multiple women of equal or lesser value. Okay, so maybe this is the lamest risk statement ever, but bear with me. You may not even be actively looking for these women, but they will eventually show up and make it known that they're available to you. And this is how women flirt. Guys, sexual when they approach. If a guy walks up to your wife, tries to flirt with her, tell her she looks hot, that you kind of get that mate guarding thing in there. Girls aren't open and direct like that. The equivalent of a guy's approach is a girl making herself available. You're going to start noticing as you get hotter, girls that maybe, and it doesn't even have to be sexual. A lot of it can just be validation or just being around. It's like a natural process. Girls don't even notice they're doing it, but all of a sudden you notice just more girls are around. If you're having a lunch break, maybe some of the girls at the office like to chit chat with you. Maybe you notice little things. People are hanging around longer than they should. Your buddy's wife starts talking with you when she never used to before, and girls pick up on that. They will eventually show up and make it known they're available to you, and that's how girls approach. They just make themselves available, which you have to take the next steps to. So what a lot of guys notice during these maps is that a lot of girls are just there now. They're making themselves available to them. The girl gets jealous on their side of things. Whether they take advantage of it or not is irrelevant. Now, if you weren't banging supermodels before you read this, you're probably not going to be banging supermodels after you read it, but you certainly can find attractive women who could see themselves having sex with you starting to express interest in you. He brings up old friends, he brings up ex-girlfriends, ex-boyfriends, friends' wives, girls from work. It's just one of those things. Now, he brings up, too, later on, like your wife may want you to change. I don't really care about that. Failing to do the map is a risk. At this point, if you have it explained to you why having a dead, sexless marriage is a bad thing, then put the book down and just go start the car and sit in the garage for half an hour. Because I think we had a good go, but yeah, we're done here. Now he summarizes with, as cynical as this advice may seem, the only person you can control is really you. So as long as you take positive action, you'll end up with a positive outcome regardless of your wife's decisions or behavior. This is not a process with a rush to an ultimatum. Divorce is amazingly serious with kids and houses and money and careers. Unpacking all that stuff is a mess. But if you're being shorted, the love and the sex front, you're ultimately being screwed over. Now, there's going to be some hard decisions that come with this. So for a lot of guys, you have to be aware at the end of this process, and this is why we always talk about the logistics very early on in a map. Plan for the worst case scenario. Your wife doesn't care. She doesn't like you. She decides, I'm just not going to sleep with you. What are you going to do about it? I'm a stay-at-home mom. I'm going to get all this stuff. You talk to your lawyer. You're like, look, this is my divorce. This is what I want out of it. I want, full custody. Aim for the moon. I want full custody. I want to keep the house. She gets out of there. She has a good job, right? The lawyer will help you align your desires with expectations of reality. And then you can ask, okay, what are things I do to get me closer to this goal? And he will tell you what you have to do. Maybe it's detach her from certain bills. Maybe it's nothing you can do about it, and so just leaving has a set punishment to it, I guess, lack of a better word, or set consequence. Maybe it's taking more active roles in the kid's raising. Like, even if she is a stay-at-home mom, if you're the one that takes them to all the dental appointments, if you're the one the school calls when there's problems, all these things can factor into play. But that gives you a roadmap, a map, lets you know what you need to do, so that by the time you get to that situation where you're top tier man, you got chicks throwing themselves at you, and you have this wife that still doesn't care, that you can leave and know the worst case scenario was pretty damned good. We've actually got a few guys in our private community that are doing this, and varying degrees of success. It's kind of nice to see them crushing it. So, plug for me. Come check it out. It's in Patreon. You'll see the links in the description of the video here. Check it out. End of the month, we don't charge till, so you got a couple weeks there where you can see if it's the place for you, and if you like it, stick around. Next part, getting control of your health. Actually, before I start on this, a little thing. So you might notice as we start going on in these episodes, these sound very familiar with what we have on the Married Red Pill, which we call the 60 Days of Dread. You may have also heard of this guy, Hunter Drew. He wrote his 31 Days to Masculinity book. And if this stuff starts to sound very familiar to you, this is why. This system has been so good. Or same thing, Blue Pill Professor's 12 Steps of Dread. This is kind of the original manual. This is the mystery method for marriage. And everybody has kind of developed their own systems based on this, and so it's really super neat. Moving on, though, the first part is getting control of your health. Sex is physical. He makes the case that, if you're out of shape, you can't perform, you're not very good at it, it's harder to keep erections, and you lose inches on yourself, because if you got a giant gut hanging out, your crap locker kind of hides a couple inches, so it's not good. Physical fitness creates confidence in women. So aside from the health benefits, if you do nothing else to improve your sex life with your wife, and I mean, if you do nothing else, you should work out. Some sort of physical exercise is just foundational to almost any and all of the alpha male traits. This is something I think is very important for guys to understand. We have guys talking about everything. Does MBTI work? Does astrology work? Does game work? Is it manipulative? Nobody can agree on everything. Nobody can agree on anything. The only thing that everybody in this space can 100% get behind and agree on is that lifting weights is good and you should be doing it. Physical exercise. So, if nothing else, that lets you know that unanimously, that's the one thing we agree is a nice and easy no-brainer solution. Makes the case here, chicks like hot dudes. Yeah, they do. And this is the one I wanted to get into before we end this episode. Increasing testosterone. Male androgen is where our sex drive comes from. Increased testosterone means you become sexier, you smell sexier, you look sexier, your musculature is better, and you perform better. So here's some easy steps you can take to start increasing it naturally first. Now we can get into TRT or doing stacks and that's fine, but these are very easy, low-hanging fruit that you should get in place before you start going to more extreme measures. Eat better. Balanced diet. Obviously, there's a lot of estrogens in food. Not eating soy is like the common one people talk about. All these things help you increase your androgen levels. Decreasing body fat. It turns out body fat is actually a huge indicator that a man is going to drop in his testosterone levels. So killing rid of obesity. Now, I don't know much about the hormonal effects of it. I just know fatter people are higher in estrogen. It's just the way it is. Eat meat. This is one super important. Do not go vegetarian. That's really for chicks. Meat helps increase testosterone levels, and so can nuts. Have some peanut butter, but be careful, because there's also evidence that going to a high protein, low carb diet will actually hurt testosterone production. Balanced diet, hear me? Balanced. So what he's referring to here is the free-floating testosterone. There's two types of testosterone in your body. There's free-floating, and then there's the stuff that's actively being used. So you have to convert it from one to the other. And it turns out saturated fats, which primarily come from meat and nuts, are the transport mechanism that removes that floating testosterone in your body and makes it, and I think in the liver as well, and actually makes it applied testosterone. So going vegetarian or vegan is one of the worst things you can do. There's a reason why every guy you see that's a vegetarian tends to look emaciated, with the exception of the 2 bodybuilders you found somewhere. Yeah, whatever. We're not talking about exceptions. Lift weights, which we've already talked about. It turns out that the more muscular fatigue you build, the more lactic acid buildups you do, the more strength training you do, the more micro tears in your musculature you use building hypertrophy, increases testosterone production within your body as a healing mechanism. So it's lifting weights. When we say do things, when we say be fitness, be exercise, be all that, we're talking about weights. Cardio is just not going to do it. Some of the other ones here, very easy. Limit your alcohol intake. Turns out alcohol is actually a depressant. So it depresses these androgen responses in your body. Same thing as sleeping better. Everything goes better with sleep. So a lot of the times, if you're so busy that you can't sleep at night, do what you have to do to change your schedule around to get it that way. Maybe let some things go on your map. It's just the way it's got to be. Get sexually turned on. Being turned on and physically erect leads to an overall testosterone boost. No reason why a little porn can't be helpful. I generally advise... He generally advises giving your wife a money shot as much as possible. It actually delivers testosterone to her that gets absorbed through the vaginal walls and makes the sex drive increase. We've talked about that before. That's why girls tend to, after you've slept with them a few times, they get hornier over time. As opposed to if you've turned her down once or twice, she kind of loses attraction over time. Try it yourself if you want it, if you don't believe me. The more frequently you have sex, the more frequently she's in the mood to have sex. And that's for this reason. You're transferring testosterone to her because girls don't produce any. So a little bit goes a long way. This is also the reason why I tend to be very distrustful of guys who are anti-porn. Now I get porn addiction and blah, 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 blah. But just be aware that if you're not getting the sex you want, something that you find visually stimulating help kickstart that engine. So don't be too ashamed of it. Omega-3 fatty acids. Again, that's just fat things. Engaging in competition. Yeah, anything that you would consider classically masculine tends to be good for that. Anything that would increase adrenaline does it. So that's why a lot of guys end up doing mixed martial arts or taking a boxing class or something like that, which leads to the last point, dominating somebody. Just do something competitive and win in a competitive game. It increases testosterone. Again, with everything, don't go nuts on this. Don't think you need to play video games and MMA all day or you're just not going to be able to get it up. Don't worry about it. Just add this stuff. If you do things, if you avoid things because they're competitive, maybe stop doing that for a bit. The last part here, male enhancement products. And I wholeheartedly agree with Athol on this one. They don't work. Save your money. Your dick is your dick. Male enhancement products. They do not work. Save your money. Your dick is your dick. So that's it for this episode. We're going to carry on after this one with health and semen production. That's going to talk about supplementations of that, as well as SSRIs. I want to devote some time to that because a lot of the medication we do really screws people over, and I don't want to just tack it on at the end of an episode here. So next episode is going to be next week. Don't forget. Also, thank you very much. I see a lot of you guys in the views there. Don't forget to smash like. If you like what you see, do the notification icons. And tomorrow, it looks like, depending on the time, Rational Male might be coming on. Rollo and I talking about semen retention. But we're not going to talk about it like a bunch of goofs, so we're going to do it proper. Anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in this far. Hope you enjoy whatever it is you're drinking, you're eating. And if you haven't smashed the wife today, go do so. Do one for me. Kudos to you. Bonus points if you say my name while you're in bed, by the way. I will retweet you on Twitter if you do that. Hashtag Ryan's name. I don't know. Anyways, cheers, guys. Enjoy yourselves. Semen retention increases testosterone. Ask your dad. Yeah, I don't think retention was his problem. That's why I got a brother. Are you winning, coach? You guys are silly. Anyways, cheers, boys.